All right, you sick fucks, are you ready for this? We're going deep on some seriously weird shit today. Time travel, kilts, and enough romance to make you puke, but like in a good way. We're talking Outlander, baby. Let's cut the crap. It's about a World War II nurse who gets zapped back to the 1700s, Scotland, and falls head over heels for a Highlander, Jamie Fraser. And we've got an expert here to break it all down for us. But first, imagine this. You're stuck in the 1700s. No antibiotics, no internet, just chamber pots. And dudes in skirts trying to overthrow the king. What the fuck would you do?
It's a pretty crazy premise when you think about it like that. The culture shock alone would be mind-blowing. But then you add in the political turmoil, the Jacobite uprisings, traditional Highland culture clashing with the modern world. It's a recipe for disaster.
Disaster. Honey, that's an understatement. We're talking about a world where people thought witches were real and leeches were like cutting-edge medicine. And into all this walks Claire. This woman who's seen some serious shit in World War II. She knows more about penicillin than potions. But before we get into all that, let's talk about how this whole Outlander thing even started. Who wakes up one day and decides to write a book about a time-traveling nurse who bangs a dude in a kilt?
So the story goes. Diana Gabaldon, the author, was watching Doctor Who one day, and she saw this Scotsman in a kilt, Jamie McCrimmon, and boom, the idea for Jamie Fraser was born.
No shit. Doctor Who. It's pretty random. And get this, the actor who played Jamie McCrimmon actually had a cameo in the Outlander TV show. Talk about meta. So Gabaldon writes this book, Outlander, and it blows up. We're talking over 50 million copies sold. That's enough to build a goddamn castle out of paperbacks.
It's crazy how popular the series is. There are a ton of books now. Novels, novellas, a graphic novel. There's even a hit TV show, a musical, and a whole separate book series about a side character, Lord John Grey.
A musical. Seriously. Someone send me a link to that shit. I gotta see it. Okay, back to the books. I heard Gabaldon is like a total history nerd. She does a ton of research to make sure her books are accurate. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Gabaldon is super meticulous about historical detail. She really dives deep into the time period she's writing about. And it shows. Readers love how authentic her portrayal of 18th century Scotland is, from the politics to the social customs to the everyday details of life.
So it's not just all about the sex and the kilts. There's actually some real substance to this shit.
There's definitely plenty of sex and kilts, don't get me wrong. But the historical context is what really makes Outlander special. It's not just your typical romance novel. Gabaldon doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, the violence, the brutality of that time period. She weaves real historical events and figures into the story, and it makes the world feel both magical and realistic at the same time.
Okay, you've got my attention. But let's address the elephant in the room. Time travel. How the hell does Claire even get back to the 1700s? Does Gabaldon explain that shit, or is it just like magic, poof, you're in the past?
It's kind of a mystery. Gabaldon leaves it open to interpretation. Claire travels through a circle of standing stones in Scotland. But how it works is never really explained. Is it magic? Some kind of time warp? Alien tech? Who knows?
Smart move. Keep them guessing. But you know what I really want to know? Did Claire pack any tampons for that trip? Because 18th century hygiene, no thanks.
That's a good question. The books don't really address that, but it's something a lot of readers have wondered about. It makes you think about the practical challenges of time travel that you don't usually see in fiction.
Exactly. Like time travel might sound amazing until you realize you might have to deal with fleas and dysentery and no goddamn indoor plumbing. But hey, at least Jamie Fraser is waiting on the other side.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jamie, let's talk about this whole love triangle thing. Claire has a husband in the 20th century, Frank. But then she falls for this Highland hottie. Does she just forget about Frank?
No, not at all. That's one of the biggest conflicts in the series. Claire is torn between two worlds and two loves. Frank is the safe choice, the husband she built a life with. But Jamie, he represents passion, adventure, a connection that goes beyond time.
So it's like a love triangle and crack. Damn, that's some intense relationship drama.
It really is. It makes you think about loyalty, destiny, the nature of love. What happens when you get a second chance at love? But it means giving up everything you know. If you were Claire, who would you choose?
Shit, that's a tough one. Frank seems like a decent guy. But Jamie, well, he's Jamie freaking Fraser. Plus, there's the whole kilt thing. But enough about the books for a second. Let's talk about the TV show. I hear it's pretty loyal to the books, which is always a good sign. Is that true?
Yeah, for the most part. The people behind the show have done a great job adapting the story. They've captured the characters, the historical setting, and the casting is perfect.
What about the scenery? Is Scotland really as stunning as it looks on TV? Because honestly, I'm ready to book a flight after this.
Oh, it's absolutely breathtaking. The show is filmed on location in Scotland. Rolling hills, dramatic coastlines, ancient castles. It's like stepping into a postcard.
All right, you've convinced me. Scotland, here I come. But seriously, tell me more about the show. Is it just a bunch of boring historical reenactments? Or does it get a little spicy?
Let's just say the show definitely embraces the passion between Claire and Jamie. The chemistry between the actors is undeniable. And the love scenes are, well, let's just say they've earned the show a certain reputation.
Good. Because who doesn't love a little bit of naughtiness? But there's got to be more to it than just Sex in the Highlands. What else makes the show so popular?
I think it's a combination of things. The acting is fantastic, the costumes are amazing, and the storylines are really gripping. It's a mix of history, romance, adventure, and even a touch of fantasy. And just like the books, it's created a huge and passionate fan base.
And apparently a prequel series. Did I read that right?
You did. Starz just announced a prequel that focuses on Jamie's parents. It'll be interesting to see their love story and how it shapes Jamie into the man he becomes.
Hell yes. More kilts, more drama, more time-traveling shenanigans. I am so there. So this Outlander thing is a whole damn universe, isn't it? Books, shows, musicals, graphic novels. Gabaldon's created a monster.
She has in the best way possible. It shows the power of storytelling and the enduring appeal of characters that capture our hearts and imaginations.
Okay, so we've got time travel hot Highlanders, steamy romance, and enough historical intrigue to make your head spin. What's not to love? We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to dive even deeper into this Outlander madness. Don't touch that dial, you magnificent bastards.
So we were talking about how Outlander has become this massive thing, and it's not just the romance part.
Right, it's like everyone is obsessed with Jamie Fraser these days.
Yeah.
Which, I get it, the dude is hot as hell. But let's get serious for a minute and talk about the history part. We mentioned the Jacobite Rebellion, but what else was happening in Scotland back then? It wasn't all just kilts and bagpipes, right?
Oh, definitely not. 18th century Scotland was like a ticking time bomb, politically and socially. The Jacobite risings were a big turning point, obviously. But there were also huge changes happening in terms of economics and land ownership. The Highland clearances, for example, were really brutal.
Highland clearances, that sounds pretty messed up. What was that all about?
Basically, wealthy landowners figured out they could make more money raising sheep than having tenant farmers. So they started kicking people off their land, often violently, to make more room for sheep.
So they traded people for a bunch of fluffy bastards? That's cold, man. And Gabaldon actually includes this in the Outlander books.
Yeah, she does. It's a big part of the story, especially in Drums of Autumn, which is mostly set in the American colonies. A lot of the Scottish settlers in the Carolinas were refugees from the Highland clearances. They brought all that trauma with them across the ocean.
Damn. So Outlander is more than just a sexy romance. It's like a history lesson disguised as a bodice ripper.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay.
So we've got the historical backdrop, the time travel, the love triangle. But what about the characters themselves? Let's talk about Claire. She's a World War II nurse, which means she's probably seen some horrific stuff. How does that experience affect her in the past?
It's a huge part of who she is. Claire is strong, resourceful, independent. She doesn't just accept the way things are in the 18th century. And her medical knowledge makes her both valuable and dangerous.
I bet. Imagine trying to explain germs to people who think bloodletting is a good idea.
Yeah.
But hey, like she's got Jamie by her side. So what's his deal? Besides being a total smo show, obviously.
Jamie is a complicated guy. He's a warrior, a leader, incredibly loyal to his clan. But he's also carrying a lot of baggage. Violence loss. He's torn between his duty to his people and his love for Claire, who challenges everything he thought he knew about the world.
Sounds like a recipe for some serious relationship drama. And we haven't even talked about the other husband, Frank. Poor dude gets left behind while his wife is off running around with a Highlander.
Frank's story is really sad. He loves Claire, but he can't compete with the connection she has with Jamie. He has to deal with the fact that his wife basically vanished. And then she comes back years later with a crazy story and a heart that belongs to someone else.
Damn. Talk about a raw deal. It seems like Outlander is just one giant emotional roller coaster. Time travel, political intrigue, love triangles, historical trauma. It's got it all.
It really does. And Gabaldon doesn't shy away from the dark side of history, violence, prejudice, social injustice. It makes the story that much more powerful and relevant.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. I need to read these books. But where the hell do I even start? There are like a million of them.
The first book, Outlander, is a good place to start. It introduces the main characters, the time travel idea. It sets the stage for the whole epic journey.
And if I get hooked, I can just binge the show, right?
Exactly. The show is in its 7th season now. And there's going to be an 8th and final season.
Nice. Plenty of content to keep me busy. But you know what I'm wondering about? All this time travel and changing history, does Claire ever screw things up? Like, step on a butterfly and accidentally destroy the universe?
That's the paradox of time travel, isn't it? The idea that you could change history is both exciting and terrifying. And Gabaldon definitely explores that throughout the series. Claire's actions have consequences. Some she intends, some she doesn't. And it forces her to think about the moral implications of what she's doing.
Juicy. No spoilers, but does Claire meet any famous people? Like, could she run into Benjamin Franklin at a bar and teach him how to make a light bulb?
I can't give too much away, but let's just say Claire has some interesting encounters with people from the history books and people whose stories were never told. And she influences events in ways she never expected.
Damn, this is getting good. Okay, gotta ask, does Claire ever just get fed up with the whole time travel thing? Like, I just want to go home, take a hot bath, and order a pizza.
Oh, there are definitely moments where she misses her old life. Claire goes through a lot. And she makes huge sacrifices. But she also discovers a strength she never knew she had.
Sounds like she's one tough chick. All right, I'm sold. But before we go full-on Outlander fangirl, let's take a step back for a second. This whole time travel thing, it's just fantasy, right? Or could there be some truth to it? Has anyone ever actually disappeared and shown up centuries later talking about a hot Highlander?
That's what's so great about speculating, isn't it? It lets us imagine things beyond what we think is possible. There's no scientific proof that time travel is real, but people have always been fascinated by the idea. It speaks to our desire to escape the present, change the past, explore the unknown.
Totally. Who hasn't wished they could go back and change something or visit a different time period? But maybe it's a good thing we can't. Can you imagine the chaos if everyone had a time machine?
It's a really interesting idea. The implications of messing with the past are huge. Would we make things better or worse? It's a question that's been around for centuries.
Yeah, maybe it's safer to just stick to books and TV shows for our time travel fix. Less risk of accidentally erasing ourselves from existence. Okay, we talked about a lot today. Let's take a minute to gather our thoughts, and then we'll finish up this deep dive into the world of Outlander. We're back, you crazy bastards. I feel like I've been living in Outlander land for days. All this talk of kilts and time travel is messing with my head.
It's a pretty immersive world.
Yeah, no kidding. So before we wrap this up, I gotta ask you, what's the craziest thing you've learned about Outlander? What really blew your mind during all your research?
Honestly, the thing that gets me the most is how Gabaldon blends history and fiction so seamlessly. She doesn't shy away from the brutal stuff. War, disease, social injustice, it's all there. But she also shows the strength of the human spirit, the power of love and loyalty, even in the face of some pretty messed up shit.
Yeah, that's what makes it so damn good. It's not just some cheesy romance. It feels real raw, like a punch to the gut sometimes. So what does this all mean for us modern-day folks? Can we learn anything from Claire and Jamie's time-traveling adventures? Or are we just doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past?
I think Outlander reminds us that history is more than just dates and battles. It's about people. Real people who lived and loved and died. It makes us look beyond the textbooks and connect with the human side of history.
Deep stuff, man. But if you could give our listeners one piece of advice inspired by Outlander, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to embrace the unexpected. Try new things, even if they scare you a little. Challenge yourself. Get out of your comfort zone and never stop exploring. You never know what kind of adventure is waiting for you just around the corner.
Hell yeah. I love it. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into Outlander. If you haven't already, go read the books, watch the show, maybe even learn a little Scottish history while you're at it. Who knows? You might just fall in love with a kilt-wearing Highlander yourself. Until next time, you magnificent bastards, stay curious, stay thirsty for knowledge, and keep those imaginations running wild.